Hi guys, so welcome to this video. What I want to talk today is about whether or not it's worth doing what I do. So I make these videos to not only teach myself, but to share with other people how to fix stuff, with an overarching idea that I'm trying to reduce, reuse, because we want to have a planet for the future to still live on. But there's always a question in my mind, is it worth doing this, right? So a lot of times I hear from people, kids, they talk about reusable nappies. They're like, oh, it's not worth doing it. Think about all the water and the electricity you've got to go through to clean the nappy, rather than, just buying a plastic disposable nappy and throwing it into landfill. Surely it's better to do that. And I would say absolutely not. But, I would probably like to explain that, and also tell you that when I'm experimenting with things, I often do things that end up using more energy and resources than had I just bought something new. So I think it's always important to look at the big picture, and I'm just going to try and explain to you how I do that and how you should start trying to understand that, because I think for the future, if the masses are not on board or not understanding the principles behind it, the basic principles, you don't have to be a mathematician, a rocket scientist, just trying to get a sense of what's sustainable and what's not. Take for example this pillow, right? So this pillow, I recently did a video on how to clean it. You've got to use a washing machine and you've got to dry it, so there's an associated cost with that. But what's the alternative? The alternative is you buy a new one. This pillow is cotton on the outside, but it's got a polyester fill. Polyester, think about your clothes, right? Polyester, nylon, it's plastic. That's what it is, it's plastic. And where does plastic come from? Oil. So you are wearing, this is oil, all right? This is oil. This is, the stuff inside here is oil. Now, how does the oil industry work, or how do you get to make this thing? You have to dig oil up out the ground in Saudi Arabia, for example. You then probably get shipped over to the UK and refined. It then probably gets shipped to China, where it's spun into polyester wool. Then it gets shipped all the way back to the UK again, then sent to a factory where it gets put inside a pillowcase, then sent to a depot, and so on and so forth. You talk about washing this, you're talking about all the energy and associated industries and costs with a cup of laundry powder and a cup of bleach. Now, I'm not going to bother looking into exactly what that requires, but I think just listening to that, I think it's common sense that there's a lot more energy going into producing this polyester fill and making this pillow than there is in cleaning it, even if I do it myself. As long as you're not using wildly large amounts of chemicals and energy, nobody's going to spend time working out every little detail, but as long as you're not using tons and tons of energy and chemicals, it's worth doing, right? So there's that side of it. The other side is the energy cost, so as in electricity. This TV, for example, right? This uses 32 watts. So watts is a measure of the power consumption. Laptops, generally they use 65 watts. A kettle is around 2,000 watts. Tumble dryer, 3,000 watts on average. Some of them go higher. So you're talking about anything uses heat uses a ton more energy, right? So a tumble dryer uses 3,000 watts, that thing uses 30 watts. A tumble dryer uses 100 times more power than this TV. Now, it does get a bit more complicated in the sense that you have to measure it over a period of time, which is why you get your bill in kilowatt hours. So just very simply to explain that, I'm trying to stick to watts, right? But kilowatts is 1,000 watts. So usually, once it gets beyond 1,000 watts, they don't want to use those numbers, so they call them kilowatts, but it's 1,000 watts. So a tumble dryer is 3 kilowatts, which means 3,000 watts. And your electricity bill is measured in kilowatt hours, as in the number of hours you've used of kilowatts. I know it's probably already getting complicated, but currently in the UK it's 34 pence per kilowatt hour. So just to try and keep it simple, as I said, 100 times more power, but for 40, that's run for about 45 minutes, and you might watch your TV for 4 hours. But there really is no comparison in terms of the energy you consume watching a TV and a tumble dryer, which is where I have a bit of an issue with hugely energy consuming devices. So the next step in the process of cleaning the pillow, for example, is to use a tumble dryer. In the UK, we have one of the dampest, muggy climates in the world, but people have not used tumble dryers for hundreds of years. I'm not going to use a tumble dryer. I've never had one. And your friend is the wind and the sun. All right, we're lacking a little bit of sun, but you're always going to have that residual heat. And in fact, I've found when drying stuff like dehydrating foods naturally, wind is what you want. You want airflow to wick that moisture away. So all I would say is, probably most people are not who's using a tumble dryer are not going to throw the tumble dryer away, not going to listen to anything I've said. All I'm trying to do is, I think for a sustainable future, the masses have to be on board, and what we need is to educate people to just get a sense of their energy consumption and what consumes what. So anyway, guys, good luck with fixing things. I hope you carry on doing it, and I hope you've got some better sense of energy use and resource use when you're doing things around the home. Just probably focus on the big things. That's probably the key takeaway from this. So let's carry on fighting the good fight.